First gear. I just snapped that right in half. Nice. Whoops. At least it didn't snap off right in there. That was easy to pull out. Alright, hopefully this one doesn't break because this one was a little bit more expensive. So the other one was a little bit cheaper. Let's try this thing. Alright, so now the chain has its own protective metal box. It protects the chain and the crankshaft portion of the engine from dirt and debris getting in here and messing up anything. Also, I'm kind of hoping that now the chain's enclosed, I'm kind of hoping the chain's going to be a bit quieter now, because I will admit the chain is a bit noisy on this thing. And I haven't uploaded part 1 yet of this project, but I can already hear it in the comments. I can already hear you guys asking, why didn't I use a belt on this thing? Belts are a lot quieter, yes, but the main reason I used a chain is because chains have master links. You can pull the master link off, pull it apart, and wrap it around the crankshaft replacement, and then hook it back up with the master link. You don't have master links with belts, and if I used a belt on this thing, and if I ever wanted to replace it, I would have to completely disassemble the engine to replace the belt. That is the main reason why I chose to use a chain. The other reasons are chains are a lot more reliable, they're stronger, they don't slip under high torque applications, and they just last a lot longer. But the downside with chains are they are a bit noisy. So I also put a chain tensioner on here because this motor does produce a lot of torque. I didn't want the torque of the motor pulling it forward and loosening the chain. Now, we're not done mounting the electric motor. We need to mount the rear of this electric motor to the engine somehow, and I think the easiest way to do this would be to just use this cover that covers the clutch mechanism on here. I'm just gonna drill 2 holes in here, so therefore I can put in bolts and then connect these threaded holes to these bolts over here, just using like 1/8 of an inch thick sheet metal or something. Alright, so this electric motor and gearbox assembly, I'm not really sure what to call this thing anymore. It's not an engine, it's not really a motor, it's like a motor gearbox assembly, I don't know. But anyway, it's now time to finally put this thing back on the pit bike frame and figure out where the battery is going. Okay, so the next thing is we gotta figure out where are we putting the battery on this thing. Now I've been looking at this for like 20 minutes and I figured out 2 places that we can put the battery. The first place is just kind of mount it right here on the side of the frame, but that's just, I feel like if I did that then the frame would be heavier on one side and it'd just be unbalanced. I don't want to do that. So the second option, which is probably what we're going to be doing, is this is the smallest size battery box that I can make. It's still put this thing in. It's a little bit longer this way, but it's basically that dimension. Basically, the idea is cut this frame off, cut a big chunk of the frame right here, and then mount the battery box right there, and then to keep this frame from folding in half, just from being connected on that little section, we weld this in place to strengthen the top portion. The gas tank does still fit even with this in place. I do want to put the gas tank back on here, so therefore I can put the plastics back on and kind of make this thing still look like a pit bike. And then to replace this, we're just basically just going to go down, over, and then back up, and it's kind of just going to make a spot to mount the battery box in this empty section right here. So yeah, that does mean we have to cut all this stuff off, cut a giant chunk out of the frame, and hopefully we're not weakening the frame, but I think it'll hold up. I think once we add this stuff on here, I think it'll still be strong enough. Yeah, this'll work. This'll work. As long as the frame doesn't fold in half. Now that we cut all that stuff off. Yeah, the battery box is finished welding. It was a little a pain to weld all 10 of these. These are almost half-inch round stock, and I just tapped or drilled them and then tapped them, so therefore I can just screw on the cover for this battery box using 1/4 hardware. So yeah, it was a little a pain to try and weld these without melting the threads and without completely melting all the way through these things, but I got it to work. I did it, and I didn't mess up anything, so that's awesome. So anyway, battery box is now done. Let's figure out how to mount this thing onto the frame. Yeah, this battery box does take up a lot of room on here, which the one thing I don't like is now you really can't see the motor. You can't really see that it's not a normal pit bike engine, because all you can see is this, and you can't really see the modified, you can't really see the electric motor sticking out of here unless you're on that side and you're kind of looking down at it. So I don't like that it kind of blocks the view of, but there's nothing I can do about that. This thing has to go here. So we do have to finish strengthening the frame. We have to, this is 3/4 inch square tubing, basically the same size as this bottom piece of square tubing that we had to cut out. We have to replace it, and pretty much our only option is to go down from the front underneath the battery box. There's like just enough room under here between the motor and the battery box, and then kind of go back up and just basically just go underneath the battery box. And then, once I do that, I'm gonna gusset the crap out of this thing because I really hope I didn't weaken the frame by doing this. Yeah, I'm not really sure how much strength this is adding to the frame, but I don't want to just simply rely on this to connect the front and back half together. Now after tacking this in place, I realized that I really don't have access to this screw right here that holds on the motor, and if I ever had to loosen or tension the chain on this thing, I really can't get access to this unless I take the battery box off. So that's not going to work. We need to raise this up as high as it can go. I did leave like a 3/8 gap in between this and the battery box so we can raise it up, and I'm going to be replacing it with this. This is 3/8 by 3/4 inch square bar. That'll hopefully make it to where once I replace it with this, I'll have enough room to get under there with some hardware. So I decided to throw a coat of paint on this thing because I'm like 95% sure we don't need to weld on this thing anymore. I'm pretty sure this is it. Which, by the way, if this picture and audio is slightly a bit different right now, my main camera that I use, I bought that thing not even 4 months ago, and it just crapped out on me today. It won't even turn on right now, so I'm having to use one of my really old cameras, and I'm hoping this thing still works. But tomorrow I'll go to Best Buy and sort it out. I may just have to buy a new camera. These Best Buy cameras don't really last that long, especially in here. Anyway, let's put the battery box back on and get the battery installed in this thing. So, I completely forgot that we also have to add the controller on here somewhere, and I think mounting it right here is going to be the best spot because I do want to put the gas tank back on this thing, so therefore I can put the plastics back on, and I'm going to cut the bottom of the gas tank off, so therefore I can shove all the wiring inside the gas tank, and that'll kind of protect it, make it to where you can't really see it that well. So I think the controller is going to be best mounted right here. So I just cut out this piece of plate, and I drilled and tapped the holes in the corners, so therefore I can bolt the controller onto this, and I'm going to be welding this piece of plate onto here just like that. So, for padding in the battery box, I bought this. This is 1/4-inch thick poly Euros something or other. I forget the exact name of it, but it's I bought this on Amazon. It was like $9 a sheet just because, remember, this is a dirt bike. I don't want the battery rattling around in the battery box when we're going off-roading on this thing, so I bought this to help pad the battery in the battery box so it doesn't rattle around in there and it's not metal on battery, so it's not battery on metal clinking around in there. So just gotta cut this stuff to size to fit in there. Ooh, I'm not sure if I'm gonna be able to do this. I may have to wrap this in tape to get this in here. Let me do that. Let me wrap this whole thing in tape. Alright, let's see if it'll fit in the battery box now. It's a bit of a tight fit with this stuff, but should slide in there now. I think that's as far in as it'll go. I hope I didn't make it impossible to get this thing out. So, it's definitely in there. It's definitely packed in there. Okay, got the throttle installed, got the key ignition installed, it's all hooked up and everything. This thing's mostly ready to be plugged in. Now, I'm kind of hoping to be able to hide all this wiring with the gas tank. I want to cut out the whole bottom of this gas tank. I'm kind of hoping that once I do, I'll be able to just kind of put the gas tank back on the frame. It'll hide the wiring, hide the controller and everything. I'll be able to zip tie all this stuff to the frame, nice and neat, and then just hide it with the gas tank. So, which means I gotta cut into the gas tank, and I never like doing this because these always have a potential of blowing up. But this thing has been sitting outside in the sun for a couple days, so most of the gas should be evaporated out, but it's still a little scary cutting into a gas tank, so I just gotta do it very carefully. Or I could simply just take a blowtorch and just stick it in there, and if there's any fumes, it will ignite. I'd rather have it ignite right now when I'm standing all the way far back, versus when I'm like right next to it and I'm trying to cut into it. So let's see if there's any fumes in there. Safety glasses, can't forget those. There goes nothing. Okay, it should be safe to cut into this thing. I really hope this thing holds oil, so we're about to find out. Alright, it's finally full. There it is. So we are most definitely gonna have to change the gearing on this, because this electric motor does make similar power to the pit bike engine, but it does turn slower of an RPM. So we're gonna have to change the gearing for this thing to be similar speed to what this thing used to be. I think this pit bike engine made around like 8 to 10 horsepower, and I know this electric motor produces 8 horsepower, but it's the RPM of this electric motor is 6,800 RPM, and I forget what the RPM of this engine is. But yeah, now all the wiring is done. Let's put the plastics back on this thing. So, I had to shorten the back of this front fender just because it hit where the battery box is, so it's just like 1.5 inches or 2 inches shorter than it was. Alright, so I did take this thing for its first test ride yesterday. I didn't film it, I apologize, but I was way too excited to film it. I just wanted to hop on this thing, test ride it, and make sure everything's working, and it is. Everything is working. It's just we do need to do a gearing change, which we knew that. We knew we were going to have to change the gearing on this thing. Now, the sprocket that's on here right now is a 41 tooth sprocket, and I want to replace it with a 36 tooth sprocket. We'll put that on, see how well it works and everything. If we want to change it more, we're going to change it more later. So, also, perfect timing is this thing just got here in the mail this morning. This is a new rear tire for this. This tire's not it's not bald or anything. There's one spot on here that's like super dried, and it's like looks like it's about to explode. It's cracked everywhere. So this thing definitely needs replacing. So I bought a new one on Amazon. This thing was only like $100, which you can tell. You can tell this thing's was only $100. It definitely looks pretty cheap. So. So I'm looking at the 41 tooth sprocket compared to the 36 that I was gonna swap out with this, and I don't think that's gonna be enough gearing change, because when I rode this thing, it wasn't very fast at all. So I was looking through the bins of sprockets that I have, and I found this 32 tooth sprocket. I think this is gonna be a bit more appropriate for this setup. First gear. Yeah, that's a lot better gearing. All right. Alright, now I know you guys are anxious to see what this thing can do. You want to know if this works or not, but I'm kind of having some issues getting this thing to work. It's not what you think. It's not my setup. It is the clutch. The clutch on this is slipping like crazy. It's first gear is fine. Second gear, it only slips at like full throttle, and third and fourth gear, it just constantly slips past half throttle. I tried messing with it. I tried loosening the cable. I even tried putting a heavier return spring on this. I tried this, I tried that. It helped it a little bit, but it's still just slipping like crazy. And I actually remember when I took this engine apart, I noticed just a ton of clutch material inside the engine. And I even remember looking at the clutch pads and thinking, wow, those clutch pads are burned. But not once did I think, maybe I should replace the clutch pads. So I'm not sure what I was thinking about that, putting those burned clutch pads back in this thing. So went on Amazon, found a new clutch discs, whatever they're called. I couldn't really find just the discs. I just found the whole clutch basket thing. I think this is the same part. It looks the same. It just kind of feels a little bit cheaper made, if you guys know what I mean. And you do need the clutch on this. Even though it's electric, we still need the clutch to shift gears and everything, especially with downshifting. So it's not like we can just delete the clutch and have it work. We need the clutch for shifting gears. So it shouldn't be that hard. Swapping this thing out, all we gotta do is drain the oil, take the cover off, swap these parts out, put everything back together, and hopefully it will solve our clutch slipping issues. So I'm not sure if I'm supposed to soak this in oil. I watched a couple videos of other people swapping these things out. Some of them said like, oh, you're supposed to just spray some oil on it. Other people like didn't even do that. They just slapped this thing in here dry. So, but I'm pretty sure. I don't know. I'm used to soaking these things in oil before putting them back on the bike. So I'm just gonna do that with this because I'm actually pushing more torque through the clutch. So I don't want this to burn out faster. And I'm also just gonna use the old oil that we poured out of this thing. Yeah, I'm used to soaking my clutch pad, so I'm just gonna let this sit for like 45 minutes to an hour. It does work. That's fourth gear. Oh wow. Alright, let's see what this thing can do. Oh, this thing is too cool. that doesn't sound good. Yeah, even though it's a pit bike, I still struggle to touch the ground. Man, whoa. Even though it's, I'm still not used to, even though it's not making any noise, it's still on. Ooh, man, that motor's hot. That motor's hot. It works. It does work. It is awesome. Shifting gears is super fun. So as long as the battery's not hot, I'm not worried about that. So this thing is super fun. It's so much fun. So much fun having gears and have it electric. So yeah, this thing is an absolute blast to ride. It still feels like a dirt bike, but yet it's quiet, it's electric, the neighbors don't mind, which is amazing. Now, this thing is kind of screaming. It needs more power, I'll admit. It's not the most powerful thing I've ever built, but the clutch in this is still kind of slipping. It's nowhere near as bad as it was, but if I'm in fourth gear and I'm kind of going slow and if I hit the throttle, I can still feel the clutch slipping, which I think this motor just produces way too much torque than this clutch in this pit bike is designed for, so I think we're just kind of overpowering it because it's just way better than it was before, but it's still kind of slipping a little bit under really hard accelerations in a high gear. So now I'm going to call this kind of like a proof of concept because I love this setup, but I want to build another one. But I want to step it up a notch. I want to do, instead of a pit bike engine, I'm going to do an actual dirt bike engine, dirt bike frame and everything, and I want to get a much bigger electric motor because I love this setup, and I want to do it, I want to build another one just a lot bigger and better and everything. Now, dare I say it, I feel like this electric motor was more fun on the mini bike frame just because of how sketchy that thing was. The brakes barely worked, the thing had high-speed wobbles under at top speed, and that just kind of made it just so much fun to ride. Plus that thing had a ridiculous torque and acceleration feel, so I'm a little tempted to buy another one of these electric motors to put it back on the mini bike frame just because of how much fun that thing was. So I may do that eventually. Now, next thing I want to do with this, I want to take it off-roading to see what this thing will do on trails. I'm really curious to see first of all, how well this thing will do on trails, and then second, I want to see how far I can go on a full battery. I really don't think it's going to be that much because it's only 20 amp hours, so I think max, I want to say like maybe 2 or 3 miles, which is not much, but that depends on, how much I'm on the throttle, how many hills or anything, and what gear I'm in and all that kind of stuff, so I really don't think this is going to go that far. But, and I'm guessing at this point. I'm guessing that's how far this thing will go. I'm pretty sure there's a math equation out there somewhere that'll tell me the answer of how far this thing will go on a full charge, but I sure don't know it. So I'm just going to guess. And my guess is only 2 or 3 miles with a full charge on this. So, let me know what y'all think of this. Do you like it? I know it's a little controversial having an electric motor and gears and all that kind of stuff. A lot of people think that you don't need gears with an electric motor, but it's more the fun factor. It's more the it's more the having fun of still shifting gears and having electrics, and that's what I like, at least. So let me know what y'all think of this setup. But anyway, I guess that's it for this video. Thank y'all for watching. I'll see ya in the next video. Oh! Would you look at that? It looks like I didn't seal off the crankshaft portion of this. It looks like I didn't seal it off as well as I thought. Oh, that's not good. How is it leaking? Why is it leaking? I'll fix it later. Let's just put the cover back on. That sucks. Oh my gosh, look at the... Yeah. This tire that I bought from Amazon is not the best, quality. It ate away a lot of the rubber already. That was like a what, 4-second burnout? You get what you pay for. This thing was only $100 for the whole tire and rim and everything.